Welcome to the Mount Pleasant podcast, featuring discussions and interviews about the people, places, and events that make Mount Pleasant such a special place.
This is the Mount Pleasant podcast. I'm your host, Brian Cleary, and all thanks to the great people of Mount Pleasant Magazine, I get the honor, the privilege of introducing you to Mount Pleasant, the people who make it such a special place to do business, to work, and even to live. We're introducing you to Mount Pleasant's best on the Mount Pleasant podcast. One of the many reasons that the town of Mount Pleasant was again named one of the 10 All-American cities in our country is due to the fact that Mount Pleasant has been designated as the Lowcountry's first certified autism-friendly town. Mayor Will Haney told us that specifically earlier this summer on the Mount Pleasant podcast. I'm Brian Cleary. Thanks so much for joining us today. The woman who's behind all of that is our guest today. Layla Luna is with Just Be. And Layla, what's the best way, and I want you to do it, if you describe exactly what Just Be is?
Well, thank you for having me. It's always good to see you. Just Be is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to the millions of families with children or young adults with autism spectrum disorder and neurodiversity. Just Be's mission is to train businesses to become more sensory friendly and welcoming for this untapped market. Most families, like myself, because I have a 15-year-old nonverbal son, when we try to go out in public, people don't understand that he's on the spectrum, mainly due to the fact that autism has no look. There's no facial recognition. It's not Down syndrome. It's not a visible disability. So sometimes it will look towards the public that our children are not behaving well, or we're not great parents, or we don't discipline them. But in reality, it's just autism. So this is where all this education and awareness is coming from.
Well, let me start with you in the education, because that's an obvious thing. You could go and read and you can watch things on TV, and doctors, they talk above me on it. So when you say spectrum, you as a parent of a child on the autistic spectrum, how do you explain spectrum to me?
The spectrum can vary. I mean, they say once you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person, because they're all individual and everyone's different. But it's usually a heightened sense of sound, smell, senses, motor skills. It's a feeling usually of being overwhelmed, because they have what we call sensory overload situations when maybe the lighting is too bright or there's too much noise in the background. Or some people, we don't even hear the radio playing at the mall behind us or in the restaurants. But for someone on the spectrum, it's heightened. Everything is tripled for them. So we want to really be careful that when we're out in public and we see individuals that are on the spectrum, that we're not judging them. It is hard to explain because, again, like my son, he looks just like an average little 15-year-old, with a skateboard and his Vans and his skinny jeans. You wouldn't know. But what goes on inside, the anxiety and the sense of feeling overwhelmed, is something really hard to convey to the public. But I'm hoping the more outreach I do, individuals that are on what we call the spectrum, because it can be ADHD, it can be Tourette's, it can be autism, it can be Asperger's. I mean, there's so much dyslexia. There's so many levels to it. And then on top of it, there's neurodiversity, which includes other aspects, which would be like Down syndrome. So it is a giant rainbow. But I think as a parent or as a neighbor or just a friend, I think you can usually see if someone's having a hard time. And so we're just trying to change that narrative, not to judge, to take a step back and say, I wonder if that child or young adult is on the spectrum, and can I help? So I can't say there's any physical. Sometimes there will be physical, ways to see it, whether they walk on their tippy toes, or sometimes they're stimming, flapping, or certain movements or sounds. You can see some kids wear headphones. They wear just cancel the sensory of the sound because it's so loud. But ultimately, we're hoping that everyone can just, wear like this little bumblebee shirt and have like a little bumblebee. And then you can just know that they're a bee.
And thanks to you, I'm not wearing it today. I probably should have, but I have a Just Be t-shirt and I do wear it proudly. And so if you could give comfort somehow, because you are dealing with this day in, day out as the parent of a child who's dealing with autism. So what is it that you would hope from me if we're in that situation? What is it that I can do to make you and your child feel better?
That's a great question. I would say, honestly, just smile. just a, simple, best 5-letter word, smile, look at the parent. You can come up to them and say, do you need help? We're not offended, but the individual, like my son, he knows when everyone's pointing at him or staring or whispering. Just because he doesn't speak doesn't mean he doesn't hear or he doesn't have feelings. These are individuals that struggle every single day. And as a community, the fabric of our community, being certified as the first autism-friendly town in the Low Country, that means that we are going to work together and we're going to make sure that we look out for each other. And if you see me out there with my son struggling, I would love your help.
Podcasting has exploded in popularity, especially local podcasts. As of 2022, 62% of Americans have listened to a podcast. 38% have listened in the last month. 26% in the last week. The podcasting audience is booming with no signs of slowing down. Call the podcast hotline to be featured on these podcasts or to receive information about podcast marketing. Call 843-530-0403 or visit carolinapodcasts.com.
You're listening to the Mount Pleasant Podcast.
This is where the pages of Mount Pleasant Magazine come alive. It's the Mount Pleasant Podcast with me, Brian Cleary, joined today by the CEO and founder of Just Be. Layla Luna joins us. Now, Layla, I mentioned to kick off the podcast the fact Mount Pleasant, again, named an All-American city, and at least some of the credit goes for our certification as the first autistic-friendly city here in the Low Country. You were there out in Colorado when the All-American City Award was given. Can you share a little bit about what that experience was like for you?
I come from a formal background of being in, a gymnast and, professional dancer, choreographer. So I've competed a lot in my life, but I have to say this was probably one of the greatest wins I've ever done. And I've won a lot. So I'm proud to say I know what hard work means and I know what it's like to take a first place in a trophy. This was so special. It's probably, like I said, one of the greatest wins I've ever done because we worked so hard and we really wanted to show all the other cities what makes Mount Pleasant so special. And that's our community. We believe in our initiatives. We believe in our mission. Standing up there and representing autism with my 2 little girls that were speaking on behalf of their brother because he couldn't come. And being the voice for neurodiversity was something that most people don't really know that that's part of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. So I felt like it was groundbreaking. I felt like we stood on that stage and we were so honest and we were like Mayor Haney said, the voice of the voiceless. And it was a thrilling. I mean, this was an epic win. It was so great. And we were the last ones to be called. So we were on pins and needles. We were number 10. So it was very exciting.
Well, that's a huge accomplishment, getting to the point that Mount Pleasant, first city in the Low Country to be autistic friendly. When you originally approached council and the mayor to try to get this done, were you confident that would happen? Were you surprised that they were so receptive?
I wish I had this really, hard story to tell you, but to be honest, it was just a mom on a mission that walked up to Mayor Haney at the farmer's market and just spoke to my mayor as like a civilian. And it was literally like a handshake, like, let's do this. And that was the first phase, was just the proclamation of, letting everyone know that April's Autism Awareness Month and going out and lighting all the fountains blue for autism, just kind of this grassroots movement, putting stickers everywhere and speaking to council, and then just to stand there and do a PowerPoint presentation to all the council members and let them hear what I go through. Why can't my son have the same quality of life as every other kid? How can we be better? And honestly, it was yeses from the get-go.
And it's got to be extra special because it's a win and it's something that's happened. But like you said, the story might be better if you had to climb up 14 hills and cut through all this red tape. But the way that the mayor and council, they didn't just say, oh, yeah, sure. They've embraced this.
It was immediate. I mean, I pitched on a campaign called Just Be Southern. And everything that I'm advocating for is just Southern hospitality. I was asking them, can we be more welcoming? Can we be more kind? Can we be more tolerant for all human beings, not just autism? And it was a huge rally to support this mission. And yeah, maybe I stood there with the voice for my son and, and the millions of others like him, non-speakers. But to be honest, it wouldn't have happened if you didn't have a mayor and all council members that believe in this and were willing to try something completely. There's no handbook to this. No one's ever done this. So we're just out there working together as a community, and they could have just gotten certified, but they're not. They doubled down. They believe in this. They took, myself and my children to Denver. I represented Mount Pleasant. It was a big win because of neurodiversity and autism and being certified. But I would say that you have people, elected officials in your community that care. They really care.
And I know this is your passion, and obviously because it's hit so close to home, but I know you well enough to know you're not just doing this selfishly, just for your child. And I think the proof is all the time and effort that you've put in to go beyond and to create this charity Just Be. So for a business that's in Mount Pleasant or someone who's visiting a business in Mount Pleasant, explain what that autism-friendly atmosphere is.
So we have a training curriculum that's online, or I've done in-person training. It was designed by one of the leading doctors in its field, Dr. Diane Cullinane. And it's about a 35-minute, step of just going through the curriculum. It's very, I would say, a true curriculum. I've seen a lot of very medical curriculums that are kind of hard to understand. And I'm not asking anyone to be a therapist, but I'm thinking if you're, Pisano's, or if you're Izzy's ice cream store, anything like that, when you have like younger employees, even to adults, or Pinnacle, there are ways to make your environment completely more sensory friendly and welcoming. So once you take the training online, then you get a certificate. And after you get certified, then we're going to upload you onto the Just Be app, which is still in beta. It's brand new. It's like the Yelp of autism. And then you can find all the businesses that have been certified. It's a social impact app. You cannot be on it unless you've been trained. So that these families like myself know that if they go to any of these restaurants or any of these, if they want to hire a real estate agent, or if they want to find a dentist or a hotel or any entertainment, they know that specifically these places have that bumblebee symbol in the window, that seal, that this is a safe zone. They're going to be treated with humanity, respect, and tolerance. And that also opens up a really nice revenue model for most businesses, because most businesses do have downtime, slower hours of operation that could be filled by customers like myself. We're a party of 5 when we go out that would never step foot into your place, your establishment, because we would be afraid that if there was a meltdown situation, you wouldn't understand. So what we're doing is we're creating this win-win situation, community helping community. It's so important fiscally. It's so important emotionally. It's so important as a community for our children. And the reason why I did this is because, to be honest, I just refuse to leave this planet knowing that this is the life for my son. We can be better.
Absolutely. And when you start talking about, say, a business, it's not like you're asking folks, hey, you got to remodel your whole place, or do the steps that businesses can take seem to be fairly simple and easily done.
So simple. Anything from turning down the lights, dimming the lights, turning off, like you don't need 7 TVs going at once, or having sensory hours, certain hours. Maybe your establishment's slow from 2 to 4. Perfect. I would love to be there at 4. I don't want to be there at 6 or 12 or the prime times. Or maybe you can create a sensory room. And with that room being it a little bit more relaxing, when you train all the employees, you can have a little step guide that you would get off of our website. And once you take the training of things that you could do by turning off your ringer, your notifications, maybe have a fidget or spinner in your desk to help them close the doors, make sure you have anything from how hot it is, or simply, this one's so easy. Let us go just to the front of the line or seat us right away. Waiting could be harder. And that whole dynamic, we're here not to change the child or the young adult to fit the environment. We need to change the environment to fit the child or the young adult. It's so simple. And all these employers, you're leading from the top. It comes from you if you're the boss. We have corporate social responsibility, but it ultimately has to come from the owners and what they want to convey to their community. And the neurodivergent community is a huge untapped market. We're the fastest growing developmental diagnosis in history. The medical community believes that we will surpass diabetes by 2025. And 1 out of every 36 kids are diagnosed with autism. There is a 3-year wait list in South Carolina to get what we call an IEP, an individual education plan. But, the numbers are huge. The numbers are huge. So you can't hide a generation of children or young adults in their room. We need to be out in public. We need to get rid of the stigma. And, these families need to have the same quality of life. It's important. Something as simple as just going to the market with your child, something that I'm sure most of your listeners just wouldn't even think about.
Right.
Just stuff that, is so day to day for them would be huge for a family like ours.
It's those things that I may take for granted that for a family or someone with autism just can't, sadly. We are taking you a little more in depth. You read about these stories in Mount Pleasant Magazine, all the good businesses, the good people, the good things that are happening in Mount Pleasant. They come alive for you here as part of the Mount Pleasant podcast. I'm Brian Cleary, and Layla Luna has joined us. She is the CEO and founder of Just Be. You're making an impact in this community, Layla. Just Be is. So let's turn it around. What is it that people in the community can do to help Just Be?
Oh, there's so much we can do. Well, I believe, first and foremost, Just Be is a movement. It's a movement for human rights and civil rights. So I hope that for businesses, they can start to hire. 85% of autistic adults are unemployed or underemployed. We want to create, with the app, it kind of generates a data of the neurodivergent community and who we are as a movement. And if we all stick together, and you don't even have to have an autistic child to support social impact. You have the choice to pick. If pizza's pizza, then pick a restaurant that supports autism, people with intellectual disabilities or that are neurodivergent. That's, I call it the power of the pocketbook. We can start making impact. And when businesses see that we are powerful in that sense, that we can create fiscal impact or social impact or a workforce, then we have something. Then we are, I say, we're in the game, we're out there and our community needs us. But you as a person, as an individual, as a neighbor, as a friend, or just a community leader, you can do so many things. Donate. I am a nonprofit.
Yes.
Donations are so greatly appreciated because I ultimately want to make South Carolina the first certified autism-friendly state in our nation and let all the other states follow in our footsteps. So I've got a big ask, and the more power behind me really helps. And the more we can do with the app, because the app has the capability of also, which I'm trying to fundraise for, 2 things, is to create a database for safety so that the police would know, and they could pull up, first responders could pull up the address and know if there's a nonverbal or an autistic living on that second floor of that address. Time saves lives. And when they can see the little sticker, whether it's a Just Be sticker or a nonverbal Be sticker on a car, or they're wearing the pin, in case of, police officers have seconds to decide, is this individual having a sensory overload meltdown because of the sirens and light, or are they on drugs? And sometimes it doesn't work in the benefit of the person on the spectrum. There's been, unfortunately, some cases that it didn't go so well. So we really want to tackle the safety, because also if something were to happen to me, my son becomes homeless, or he could be a warden of the state. So we need to create homes. The last part I'm trying to raise money for is to create endowment, charitable remaining trust funds, so that these families like myself, if something were to happen to me, what would happen to Rio? This has to be in the conversation when we talk about how high these numbers are. We cannot ignore what we call the cliff, the kids that are after 21, when they can't go to school and they don't have a job, or if their caregiver gets sick. We need to talk about this. And luckily, Mount Pleasant is really stepping up, and this is important to them. We as a community are important.
You've laid out the case very well. Your passion comes through, the energy that you put into this. So folks who are watching and listening to this podcast, I think they're going to be motivated to make a donation. How is it they can do that?
They can just go to Just Be, like a bumblebee, thechange.com. It's on my website. They can donate on the website, or they can get trained and be certified and get on the app. The more of us on the app, to create this Yelp of autism, to also get into the untapped market of traveling. 87% of autistic families have never taken a vacation. They said they would travel if they knew a place was sensory friendly and welcoming and accepting. So that's a great aspect of the tourism. That's a huge market that's not even being tapped, that we could come as a family. I have never traveled with my son. Only 13% of autistic families take family vacations. And I mean, we are South Carolina, we're Charleston. I mean, you guys we win every year for like hospitality, the friendliest city. So these families should be able to take all these tours, see the Yorktown, be able to experience beautiful Charleston and the Low Country and Mount Pleasant, but maybe come on off season, maybe come on off times.
Let me take it a step further from your aspect, because you have a son. He is autistic, and you just said never been on a vacation with him. Siblings. How is it as a family you deal with that, and how do the siblings become a part of that and react?
It's so hard. Rio has two sisters, Leia and Odea. Leia is definitely Rio's spokesperson. I sometimes think she's his agent. She'll be like, Rio doesn't talk. She's like, Rio wants hot dogs. I'm like, okay, Rio wants hot dogs. She loves to be his little spokesperson. But it affects the family dynamic. I mean, a lot of the time it breaks up families. You see a lot of single parents raising their child alone. There's not that many services. And for the typical kids in the family, like my two daughters, we sit on the sidelines and just know that we'll never be able to, be at the lighting of the tree, or, the blessing of the fleet, or the bridge run, or go to a movie, because people just have not thought about this community. And that is the advocacy. That's what the app is. That's what Just Be's training. I just trained agent-owned agency, and they're the first real estate agency, and they loved it. They want to create a sensory room. So when potential clients come in, they have a certain office that they would feel more inclusive and more calm, and with the lighting. They want to have sensory bags for every single agent that goes out there, because look how many families are moving here. You don't think that one of these families has an autistic child? Of course. Sure. And what other town would they ever move to? Of course, Mount Pleasant. If I was moving here, I would hire agent-owned agency, and I would go in there, and I would, and all the other agencies, so I'm training more, I would go and I would find a house in Mount Pleasant, because Mount Pleasant is certified, and we've got great schools, we've got great services, but we have a community that is actively working on being inclusive. This is the true DEI, not being inclusive, not exclusive.
So when we talk about Just Be, BEE, there's all kinds of B references there, including Layla, the Beehive. What's the Beehive all about?
Well, Mount Pleasant has gone a little bit more into their commitment to being certified as the first autism-friendly town in the Low Country. The Beehive is an 8-foot by 24-inch trailer that is called the Beehive, and it will be parked outside of any event. It's a sensory station, a mobile station. So we call it like a sensory safe zone. So all these families, like we just talked about, that often sit on the sidelines feeling that they wouldn't be welcome to any of the fun activities, because Mount Pleasant's always having something great going on. Well, now they can, because the Beehive will be there, and it's just inside. It's like a vibe. It's very sensory calming. So if anyone, whether child or adult, feels overloaded, feels overstimulated, if they're at the Battery or like at the Blessing of the Fleet, or we're having, pretty soon we'll have the lighting of the tree, they can go inside the Beehive, they can reset and feel calm, and then get a sensory bag, which would have like headphones, a little fidget, some sensory toy, whether it's a squishy or a pop-it, just to calm down. And that is a way for them just to feel like we can be part of this. The beehive is here, and it signals to the community that, we definitely have this opportunity to coexist with everyone. It might be a little bit on the side. It might be a giant beehive that's black and yellow, but we are here.
You obviously show a lot of care, a lot of love for your son. So give us an idea. What's his day like? What does he like to do?
Oh, yeah, he loves a scooter. He loves to be on a scooter. He's 15 and he just doesn't stop eating. Like, he's so hungry. He's super tall and skinny. He just wants to eat. So we always are eating something or something sweet. He loves his iPad, and on his iPad, he likes to watch some of the squishies that they make and all the slime. I mean, he's just a regular kid, he can type, so he can express himself through what we call rapid prompting method through typing, but he has a letter board. And when he gets frustrated, he closes his eyes and tries to make you disappear, which is his thing. But
as you continue to make progress with Just Be, are you feeling better about his future? Are we headed in the right direction?
Oh, yeah. Well, I won't stop. That's where, I guess I got coined Mother on a Mission. I've taken some interviews and people have asked me, what's your degree? I'm like, my degree? My degree is mother. That's my degree. So with that passion, I believe passion, if you have passion, you can do anything. And I see a world that it is a beautiful place for him. Everybody has a special place in this world, even if you are special. And I know that my son has been one of the greatest inspiring moments of my life. I mean, this was my dream. My dream was to be a mom. And no one can ever prepare you to find out that your child is special. That's a huge moment. But in that moment, you can find what God is really about, what's the reason, and that every single person should be celebrated, whether they're brain differences or people who think outside the box. So Just Be is to just be kind, to just be human, but also to just be the change, because that's what we're here, to just be yourself and to just be that change. And I believe it's coming. We've begun. And let me tell you something, state by state, they're going to hear about Mount Pleasant. They're going to hear about South Carolina, because we're going to go all the way, because it's our moment. Every great community has their moment in history. Well, this is the neurodivergent moment and the autistic moment.
A mom on a mission. That is a great description for you. And Layla, obviously your son loves you because you talk about, hey, you want to be a mom. He's got to be lucky to have you as a mom. And we're lucky to have you in the Mount Pleasant community leading this crusade, and a crusade that we will find a finish line to. And you're going to be a part of that. So for people who, again, want to help you out, want to be a part of the Just Be, it's about community, right?
It's a movement. I'm saying some things that some moms are like, I wish we could have. I'm getting a lot of mom power behind me, because I feel like, collectively it's hard and it can be sometimes exhausting. And I had one mom say, when she said her dream in life is to outlive her daughter because she doesn't know who would take care of her, it fuels me. It makes me feel like, you know what? We're stronger in numbers, boots on the ground. Let's go. We got this. We can do this collectively as a community, as moms and dads, brothers and sisters, neighbors, grandma, grandpas. We can do this. We can make a huge change in everyone's life by just changing the environment, and join Just Be. I need help. Anyone that has a great service or wants to be creative, feel free to send us a message. You can online, you can contact, if you just want to be part of this, because this is going to be something outstanding and great. And we're going to make a special world for all these special children.
Never doubt the strengths of moms, particularly when they come together. So Layla, somebody wants to be a part of Mom Power. Somebody's got a business. Somebody wants to be a part of Just Be. What should they do?
Go to my website, Just Be the Change, BEE, like a bumblebee, and you can just contact. There's all the contact information, your email. On Instagram, it's Just Be the Change. But you can I would say the best bet is just go through the email and send me an email. I get all of them. I'll answer you, and we can go from there. I've been meeting a lot of moms. I've been meeting a lot of daughters that were just diagnosed. I've met several families and also municipalities that are interested in certifying too. this is something that I would love to know your story. Help me, because if you help me and I can help you, then together we can grow. That's the most important, is that we all have stories to tell, and that our community needs to hear our voices. And that's where, going back to Mayor Haney, this is the voice of the voiceless. And I am here just as a mom on a mission to create a better world for my kid, and hopefully for all the millions of other children too.
This is a mom you want to meet. She brings the passion. She brings everything to what she does. And it's out of the love for her son. And in the long run, it's out of the love for this community, Mount Pleasant. Layla Luna, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me. I'll see you, and go to justbethechange.com. Thank you.
And you can check out more on this. Of course, the pages of Mount Pleasant Magazine is where we highlight what's happening in this great city of ours. And the first autism-friendly city in the Lowcountry is Mount Pleasant, thanks to Layla Luna. Our guest today with me, Brian Cleary, on the Mount Pleasant Podcast.
Thanks for spending your time with the Mount Pleasant Podcast, your community, your podcast. Listen to past and future episodes at mountpleasantpodcast.com.